The rain hammered against the abandoned warehouse windows as Maya Chen pulled her engineering tablet closer to her chest. She had come to the industrial district's edge to test her new portable fusion reactor prototype in isolation, away from the prying eyes of her corporate supervisors who thought her designs were too unconventional. The storm had forced her to seek shelter in what appeared to be an empty building. As she pushed open the rusty door, her flashlight beam caught something that made her freeze. In the far corner of the cavernous space, curled against a pile of rotting crates, lay what could only be described as a dragon. But this was no mighty beast from ancient legends. The creature was barely the size of a large dog, her scales a dull bronze that should have gleamed like polished metal. Her breathing was shallow and labored. Maya's engineering mind immediately shifted into problem-solving mode, overriding her initial shock. She approached slowly, noting the creature's condition with the same analytical precision she applied to mechanical failures. The dragon's left wing hung at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. Deep gashes marked her flanks, and her eyes, when they fluttered open, held a pain that went beyond physical injury. "Hey there," Maya whispered, crouching down several feet away. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon's eyes focused on her with surprising intelligence. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible, like wind through broken glass. "No one will keep me," she whispered in perfect English, though her accent carried notes Maya had never heard before. "I am nothing. Worthless. The council made that clear." Maya felt her heart clench. She had heard those same words echoed in her own mind countless times during her struggles as a female engineer in a male-dominated field. But, hearing them from this magnificent creature, broken and alone, sparked something fierce in her chest. "What's your name?" Maya asked gently, setting her tablet aside and pulling an emergency medical kit from her backpack. "Zira," the dragon replied, flinching as Maya examined her injuries. Was the smallest of my clutch. Too weak to fly properly. Too small to breathe fire like the others. The Council of Elders decided I was a burden to our kind." Maya's hands stilled. "They abandoned you?" Zira's laugh was bitter. "Worse. They brought me to this human city and left me here to die. Said if I could not serve dragonkind, I could at least feed the scavengers and return my energy to the earth." The casual cruelty of it made Maya's jaw clench. She had spent her career fighting against people who dismissed others for being different, for not fitting their narrow definitions of worth. Her own supervisor had tried to sideline her fusion project because it challenged conventional wisdom about power generation. "Well," Maya said firmly, beginning to clean Zira's wounds with antiseptic wipes, "they were wrong about you. And they don't get to decide your worth." Zira's eyes widened as Maya worked with gentle efficiency. "You're not afraid of me? Should I be?" Maya asked with a small smile. "You're injured and alone. The only thing I'm afraid of is not being able to help you properly." As Maya continued her first aid, Zira found herself studying this strange human. Most humans she had observed from afar seemed to fear dragons, even ones as small as herself. But this woman approached her with the same careful attention she might give to a complex puzzle, her movements precise and purposeful. "What are you doing out here?" Zira asked as Maya fashioned a splint for her wing from materials in her backpack. "Testing a new power source I designed," Maya replied. "My boss thinks it's too risky, too different from established technology." "Sound familiar?" Despite her pain, Zira managed a weak smile. "You're also considered too small for your kind?" "Something like that." Maya secured the splint with medical tape. "I'm trying to create a fusion reactor that can be portable and safe for civilian use. Everyone says it's impossible, that I should stick to improving existing designs instead of chasing fantasies." Zira's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "Fusion? Like the heart of stars?" Maya's eyebrows rose. "You know about nuclear physics? Dragons have long lifespans. I may be considered a failure by my kind, but I have studied many things during my years. Your human science fascinates me, especially how you overcome physical limitations through ingenuity." Zira paused, then asked quietly, "May I see this device that your people reject?" Maya hesitated for only a moment before retrieving her tablet and pulling up the reactor schematics. Zira studied them with an intensity that reminded Maya of her university professors. "This is brilliant," Zira breathed. "But you're having trouble with the magnetic containment field, aren't you?"
The plasma keeps destabilizing at the transition points.
Maya stared at her.
How could you possibly know that?
Zira's voice grew stronger as she focused on the problem.
Dragons understand energy flow differently than humans. We don't just breathe fire, we manipulate the fundamental forces that create it.
Your design is sound, but you're fighting against the natural harmonics instead of working with them.
She gestured weakly at a section of the blueprint with her good claw. See here?
If you adjust the field generators to pulse in a Fibonacci sequence rather than maintaining constant pressure, the plasma will stabilize itself.
It's like singing the same song the universe uses to create stability.
Maya stared at the equations Zira had pointed out, her engineering mind racing. The dragon's suggestion was elegant in its simplicity, addressing problems Maya had been struggling with for months.
More than that, it showed a fundamental understanding of physics that most human scientists would kill for.
Zira, Maya said slowly, you're not worthless.
You're brilliant.
The dragon's eyes filled with something Maya recognized as desperate hope, quickly suppressed by years of rejection.
Even if that were true, what difference does it make? I have nowhere to go, no one who wants me.
Maya looked at this remarkable creature, seeing past the physical injuries to the brilliant mind within. She thought about her own struggles, the loneliness of being the only person who believed in her ideas, the empty apartment she returned to each night after facing skeptical colleagues.
What if I told you I had a spare room? Maya said quietly. And a workshop where someone with your insights could help change the world? Zira's breath caught. You would let me stay with you?
I'd like you to stay with me, Maya corrected.
I think we could help each other.
You understand energy in ways I never could, and I have the engineering skills to build whatever we design together.
Tears gathered in Zira's ancient eyes. But I am so small. I cannot even fly properly.
Maya reached out slowly and gently touched Zira's uninjured shoulder.
Some of the most powerful things in the universe are small. Atoms split to power cities. Microchips control spacecraft. Being small doesn't make you weak, Zira. It makes you precise.
The storm outside began to quiet as Maya carefully helped Zira to her feet. The dragon was unsteady but determined, leaning on Maya for support as they made their way toward the warehouse exit.
Why? Zira asked as they reached Maya's truck. Why would you help someone like me? Maya helped her into the passenger seat, adjusting it so Zira's injured wing wouldn't be compressed.
Because someone like you helped design a better fusion reactor in 5 minutes than my entire team managed in 5 months.
Because you're alone and hurt, and I've been alone too. Because everyone deserves someone who sees their worth.
As Maya started the engine and pulled away from the industrial district, Zira watched the city lights blur past the windows. For the first time in her life, she wasn't being taken somewhere to be abandoned or rejected.
She was being taken home.
Maya, she said softly as they drove through the quiet streets.
Yeah? Thank you for keeping me.
Maya glanced at her new friend, this brilliant creature who had been discarded by those who should have treasured her.
Thank you for letting me.
In the dashboard's green glow, both of them smiled, two outcasts who had found something neither had dared hope for, someone who understood that true worth had nothing to do with size or conformity, and everything to do with the courage to be exactly who they were meant to be. The rain stopped completely as they reached Maya's neighborhood, and, for the first time in months, Zira felt something she had almost forgotten existed: hope. Maya's apartment was nothing like the grand caves or mountain lairs that Zira had imagined humans might keep. It was modest, filled with engineering textbooks, half-assembled electronics, and the comfortable clutter of someone who lived alone and worked constantly. But, as Maya helped her through the front door, Zira felt something she had never experienced in the crystal halls of her own kind: warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. The spare room is just down the hall, Maya said, supporting Zira's weight as they navigated the narrow hallway.
It's mostly been storage, but I can clear it out. Do you need anything specific? A heat source? Special food?
Zira paused at the doorway, overwhelmed by the simple kindness in Maya's voice.
No one had ever asked what she needed before. I don't know.
Dragons typically sleep on stone or metal, but I've been sleeping on whatever I could find for weeks. Maya frowned, her engineering mind already working on the problem.
What about temperature regulation? You're cold-blooded, right?
Not exactly, Zira explained, settling carefully onto the cleared space Maya had made on the floor. We generate our own heat through internal processes, but we do better in warmer environments.
The cold makes healing slower. Okay, I can rig up some heating elements. What about food? Zira's expression grew embarrassed. Dragons are omnivores, despite what your legends say. We don't actually need to eat livestock or humans. I've been surviving on whatever I could scavenge from dumpsters. Maya's face darkened. Well, that stops now. Are you allergic to anything? Any foods that are toxic to dragons?
The careful questioning continued as Maya bustled around, gathering blankets and adjusting thermostats. Zira found herself answering readily, surprised by how natural it felt to be cared for. When Maya finally settled down with a cup of tea and a notepad, Zira realized that no one in her entire life had ever spent this much effort trying to make her comfortable. Now, Maya said, tell me about that fusion reactor insight. I want to understand how you see energy differently. Zira's eyes brightened despite her exhaustion. Dragons don't just produce fire. We manipulate what you might call the fundamental frequencies of matter itself. Every element vibrates at specific rates, and, when you understand those vibrations, you can influence them. She gestured weakly with her good claw. Your fusion reactor is trying to force hydrogen atoms together, but force creates resistance. What if instead you convince them to want to fuse? Created conditions where coming together feels natural rather than violent? Maya leaned forward, her tea forgotten. Like resonance frequency? The way a singer can shatter glass by hitting exactly the right note? Exactly. Zira's excitement made her attempt to sit up straighter, then wince as her injuries reminded her to be careful. But, instead of shattering, you're creating harmony. The Fibonacci sequence I mentioned works because it mimics the mathematical patterns that govern natural growth and stability. Maya grabbed her tablet and began sketching modifications to her design. If we apply that principle to the magnetic containment fields and adjust the pressure sequences to match natural harmonics. They worked together through the night, Maya's technical expertise combining with Zira's intuitive understanding of energy. What emerged was revolutionary, a fusion reactor design that was not only more stable than anything currently existing, but also dramatically more efficient. As dawn light filtered through Maya's windows, both of them stared at the completed schematics with awe. This could change everything, Maya breathed. Clean energy, portable enough for remote communities, safe enough for civilian use. Will your people accept it? Zira asked, remembering her own rejection by the Dragon Council. Maya's jaw set with determination. They'll have to. The math is solid, the science is sound, and the potential applications are too important to ignore. But, as Maya prepared for work that morning, leaving Zira with strict instructions to rest and heal, both of them knew that acceptance would not come easily. Maya had faced skepticism before, but this design challenged fundamental assumptions about fusion technology. And she would be presenting it without being able to mention her brilliant collaborator. The first day at Chen Dynamics proved Maya right to be concerned. Her supervisor, Dr. Harrison Wells, barely glanced at her revised fusion designs before dismissing them. Chen, we've been through this, Wells said, not looking up from his computer. Fusion power requires massive facilities and enormous resources. These creative approaches of yours are interesting thought experiments, but they're not practical engineering. But, sir, if you look at the mathematical models are irrelevant if the underlying assumptions are fantasy. Wells finally looked at her, his expression patronizing. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but perhaps your time would be better spent on the battery efficiency project. Something more suited to your experience level. Maya felt her temper rise, but forced herself to remain calm. Dr. Wells, this design could provide clean energy to communities that have never had reliable power. The applications for developing countries alone are beyond our current scope, Wells cut her off. Chen Dynamics focuses on practical, marketable technologies. Not science fiction. Maya left the meeting frustrated but not defeated. She had faced this kind of dismissal before, and she had learned that sometimes the only way to prove a concept was to build it yourself. That evening, she returned home to find Zira carefully examining her workshop with obvious fascination. The dragon had managed to move around the apartment despite her injuries, and her eyes were bright with curiosity. How was your day? Zira asked, though Maya's expression probably told the whole story. About as expected, Maya sighed, setting down her briefcase.
My boss thinks the new design is too radical. He wants me to work on incremental improvements to existing technology instead. Zira's expression darkened. They fear what they don't understand. What about you? How are you feeling?
Better, Zira said, demonstrating by carefully extending her injured wing.
Dragon healing is faster than human healing, especially in warm environments. Your heating system is helping enormously. Maya examined Zira's wing with relief.
The break was healing cleanly, and the gashes on her flanks were already closing.
That's amazing.
At this rate, you'll be flying again within a week. Something flickered across Zira's face at those words, an expression Maya couldn't quite read.
Maya, Zira said carefully, what happens when I'm healed? Will you expect me to leave?
Maya stopped adjusting the heating element she had been tinkering with.
Do you want to leave?
No, Zira admitted quietly.
This is the first place I've ever felt wanted. But I don't want to be a burden.
Maya turned to face her fully. Zira, in one night you solved problems I've been struggling with for months.
In one day, you've made me feel less alone than I have in years. If anyone's benefiting from this arrangement, it's me.
But I can't exactly get a job or contribute financially.
Who says there's only one way to contribute?
Maya gestured toward her workshop. I've been thinking about what you said regarding patents and intellectual property. What if we filed for patents on this fusion design together?
Zira blinked in surprise. Together?
As co-inventors. You provided the theoretical framework that made it work.
That's not just helpful consultation, that's fundamental contribution to the invention. But I'm a dragon. Do dragons even have legal rights in human society?
Maya paused, realizing she had no idea what the legal status of sentient non-human beings was.
I guess we'll find out.
But I'm not going to let bureaucracy stop us from giving you credit for your work. That night, as they refined their fusion design even further, Zira found herself marveling at the strange turn her life had taken. 3 days ago, she had been dying alone in a warehouse, convinced she was worthless.
Now she was collaborating with a brilliant human engineer on technology that could change the world.
Maya, she said as they worked side by side, why aren't you afraid of me?
Maya looked up from the equation she was transcribing. Why would I be afraid of you? I'm a dragon. Your legends speak of my kind as dangerous beasts.
Your kind also abandoned a brilliant scientist to die in a warehouse, Maya said bluntly. I'm more worried about humans than I am about dragons.
Zira considered this. You see me as a person, not a monster.
I see you as someone with an incredible mind who's been treated badly by people who couldn't recognize your worth. Maya set down her stylus and looked directly at Zira.
Sound familiar? It did sound familiar.
Zira was beginning to understand that humans and dragons might not be so different after all, at least when it came to the way societies sometimes discarded those who didn't fit conventional molds. What if your colleagues reject our work not because it's wrong, but because it came partly from me?
Zira asked. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then, they're going to miss out on revolutionary technology because of their prejudices. But that doesn't mean we stop working. Even if it means fighting both human and dragon skepticism?
Maya smiled, and there was something fierce in her expression that reminded Zira of the fire she herself had never been able to produce.
Especially then.
Some fights are worth having, Zira.
And some things are worth fighting for.
As they continued working into the night, both of them understood that they were building more than just a fusion reactor. They were building a partnership that would challenge everything their respective societies believed about cooperation, worth, and the power of seeing beyond conventional limitations. 2 weeks after finding Zira, Maya stood in her workshop staring at the most beautiful piece of technology she had ever seen. The prototype fusion reactor hummed quietly on her workbench, no larger than a desktop computer but producing enough clean energy to power her entire apartment building. The harmonics Zira had suggested created a stability field so perfect that the fusion reaction seemed to sustain itself effortlessly.
It's working, Maya breathed, checking the readings for the 100th time. Zira, it's actually working.
Zira, whose wing had healed enough to allow short flights around the apartment, perched on a tall stool beside the workbench. Her bronze scales had regained their luster, and her eyes glowed with satisfaction as she watched the energy readings remain steady.
Of course it's working, Zira said with a small smile. We built it correctly. Maya laughed, giddy with success. We need to document everything, file the patents, prepare presentations.
She paused, her excitement dimming slightly. And figure out how to explain where half the theoretical framework came from. They had spent days working out this problem. Patent applications required detailed explanations of how inventions worked, and much of their fusion design relied on principles that Zira understood intuitively but that human science had never formally described.
What if we approach it as a consultant relationship? Zira suggested.
Many human inventors work with outside experts who prefer to remain anonymous. But you deserve credit for this, Zira.
This isn't just a consultation, it's fundamental co-invention. Before Zira could respond, Maya's phone rang.
The caller ID showed her sister Lisa, which was unusual since they typically only talked on weekends.
Maya? Thank God you answered. Lisa's voice was tight with stress. I need your help.
The power's been out in my neighborhood for 3 days, and Emma's nebulizer needs electricity to work. The backup generators at the hospital are failing, and
Maya felt ice form in her stomach.
Her 6-year-old niece Emma suffered from severe asthma, and her breathing treatments were critical for her health.
How is she doing?
Not good. We're at the emergency room, but they're overwhelmed with patients from the power outage.
Maya, I know this is a lot to ask, but do you have any of those portable batteries you were working on? Something that could run medical equipment? Maya looked at the fusion reactor on her workbench, then at Zira. Lisa, what if I told you I had something better than a battery? Something that could power the entire hospital?
I'd say you're my favorite sister and ask how fast you can get here.
Maya was already grabbing her keys. We'll be there in 20 minutes. We? Lisa asked, but Maya had already hung up. Zira, how portable is this thing? Maya asked, already beginning to disconnect the reactor from its test setup.
Very portable, Zira said, understanding immediately.
But, Maya, if we use it publicly. I know.
Everyone's going to want to know how it works.
Maya secured the reactor in a transport case designed for sensitive electronics. Are you ready for the world to meet its first dragon inventor?
Zira's expression was a mixture of fear and determination.
Will they accept me?
They will when they see what you've helped create, Maya said firmly.
Some things are more important than hiding, Zira. This is one of them.
The drive to the hospital was tense, but not because of traffic.
Both Maya and Zira understood that they were about to cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed.
Once they used the fusion reactor publicly, the questions would start.
The scrutiny would begin. Their quiet partnership would become very public very quickly. Maya, Zira said as they pulled into the hospital parking garage, what if they take me away? What if they decide I'm too dangerous to live freely? Maya turned off the engine and looked at her friend. Then, they'll have to go through me first. But, Zira, I don't think that's going to happen. You're about to save lives. That's what people are going to remember. The emergency room was chaos.
The backup generators were running on fumes, and medical equipment was being rationed to the most critical patients.
Maya found Lisa in a crowded waiting area, holding Emma who was struggling to breathe despite the medication she had been given. Maya. Lisa stood up quickly. Do you have something that can help?
I have something that can help everyone, Maya said, setting down the transport case. But I need to talk to whoever's in charge of facilities management.
That would be me, said a harried-looking woman in scrubs approaching their group.
Dr. Sarah Kim, head of emergency services.
Are you the engineer Lisa called about? Maya Chen, Maya introduced herself.
I have a portable power source that can handle your entire electrical load, but I need access to your main distribution panel.
Dr. Kim looked skeptical. How portable are we talking? Our hospital draws megawatts during peak operation. Maya opened the case, revealing the humming fusion reactor. Portable enough. Dr. Kim stared at the device, then at Maya. That's impossible. There's no way something that small could power a hospital. It's fusion-based, Maya explained.
A new design that achieves remarkable power density through resonance stabilization.
Fusion? Dr. Kim's voice rose. You brought a nuclear device into my hospital? It's completely safe, Maya assured her quickly. The reaction is contained by magnetic fields, and the radiation output is negligible. Less than you'd get from a chest X-ray. As they spoke, Emma's breathing became more labored, and Lisa's face grew pale with worry. Zira, who had been staying back near the entrance, approached the group despite the stares her appearance was drawing. Dr. Kim, Zira said in her clear, precise voice, every moment we spend discussing safety protocols is a moment that children like Emma continue to suffer. The device is safe. I helped design it. Dr. Kim stared at Zira, clearly struggling to process the fact that a dragon was speaking to her about nuclear physics. You, what are you? I'm a dragon, Zira said simply. I'm also a scientist. And, right now, I'm someone who can help you save lives. The emergency room had grown quiet around them, patients and staff staring at the unprecedented scene. Maya could see fear, wonder, and curiosity warring in their faces. Look, Maya said, we can stand here debating credentials, or we can fix your power problem. Emma needs her breathing treatments. How many other patients are suffering because your equipment isn't working properly? Dr. Kim looked around her emergency room, at the children struggling to breathe and the elderly patients whose monitoring equipment was rationed. She looked at Emma, whose lips were beginning to show a blue tinge that every medical professional recognized as dangerous. Fine, she said. But, if this thing causes any problems. It won't, Zira said confidently. The physics don't allow for catastrophic failure. The worst that could happen is the reaction simply stops. 20 minutes later, the hospital's lights came on at full power for the first time in 3 days. The air conditioning resumed, medical equipment hummed back to life, and Emma received her first proper breathing treatment since the outage began. Dr. Kim stared at the readings from the fusion reactor in amazement. The power output is completely stable, and you're right about the radiation. It's cleaner than our background levels. How long will it run? Asked the facilities manager who had joined them. Indefinitely, Maya replied. The fuel source is essentially inexhaustible. This changes everything, Dr. Kim breathed. Remote hospitals, disaster relief, developing countries without power infrastructure. As word spread through the hospital, Maya and Zira found themselves surrounded by medical staff eager to understand the technology. But, they also attracted attention from security personnel and hospital administrators who were clearly unsure how to handle the presence of a dragon on hospital grounds. Dr. Chen, said a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as the hospital's chief administrator, we need to discuss the legal implications of this situation. Your colleague, what exactly is her status here? Her name is Zira, Maya said firmly. She's my research partner and co-inventor of the device that just saved your emergency room. But, she's not human. Are there protocols for this? Insurance implications? Legal liability? Maya felt Zira tense beside her, and she saw the old fear returning to her friend's eyes. This was exactly what they had both worried about, the moment when Zira's contributions would be overshadowed by bureaucratic anxiety about her nature. I'll tell you what the implications are, said Dr. Kim, interrupting the administrator. A brilliant scientist just provided us with technology that will save lives. I don't care what species she is. Dr. Kim, we have to consider that my emergency room is running at full capacity for the first time in days, Dr. Kim cut him off. We have to consider that children are breathing normally because of this technology. Everything else is paperwork. Lisa approached Maya with Emma, who was looking much better after her treatment. Maya, how can I ever thank you? Thanks Zira, Maya said. This technology exists because of her insights. Lisa looked at the dragon who had helped save her daughter, and her expression was pure gratitude. Thank you, Zira. Thank you for helping my little girl. Zira's eyes filled with tears. In her entire life, no one had ever thanked her for using her abilities to help others. The Dragon Council had only seen her limitations. But, this human woman was thanking her for using her mind to heal. You're very welcome, Zira managed to say. I'm glad Emma is feeling better. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Maya realized that everything had changed. Hospital staff were already calling colleagues at other facilities, journalists were arriving to cover the story of the mysterious new power source, and government officials were undoubtedly being notified about the appearance of an intelligent dragon in public. Zira, Maya said as they loaded the reactor back into its case, are you ready for this? Once we walk out of here, there's no going back to quiet anonymity.
Zira looked around the emergency room, now bright and fully functional, at the medical equipment humming efficiently, at the children who were breathing easily because of the technology she had helped create. Maya, she said firmly, I've spent my entire life being told I was too small to matter. But, today, being small helped us create something that saves lives.
I'm ready for whatever comes next.
As they left the hospital, Maya's phone was already ringing with calls from reporters, government officials, and Chen Dynamics executives who had heard about the miraculous new power source.
The quiet partnership between a human engineer and a dragon scientist was about to become very public indeed.
But, as Maya looked at Zira, whose bronze scales gleamed with confidence in the afternoon sunlight, she felt nothing but pride. They had built something revolutionary together, and now the world would see what was possible when brilliant minds were valued for their contributions rather than judged by their origins. 6 months after the hospital incident, Maya stood before the United Nations Energy Council in Geneva, with Zira perched confidently on a specially designed platform beside the podium. The chamber was packed with representatives from every major nation, energy corporations, environmental groups, and scientists from around the world. The journey to this moment had been turbulent. The hospital demonstration had triggered a media firestorm, government investigations, and intense scrutiny from both human authorities and, unexpectedly, the Dragon Council that had once rejected Zira. Esteemed delegates, Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 1 year ago, the world believed that clean, portable fusion power was decades away. Today, thanks to groundbreaking research combining human engineering with dragon energy sciences, we can offer immediate solutions to global energy poverty. The presentation screen displayed images of Chenzira fusion reactors powering refugee camps, remote villages, and disaster relief operations across 6 continents. Each installation had been personally overseen by Maya and Zira, ensuring proper implementation and training.
The technology you've seen demonstrated worldwide represents more than just an engineering advancement, Maya continued.
It represents what becomes possible when we value intelligence and innovation regardless of their source. Dr. Harrison Wells, Maya's former supervisor, sat in the industry section looking simultaneously proud and embarrassed. After the hospital demonstration, Chen Dynamics had immediately promoted Maya to head of advanced research and offered her unlimited funding. Wells had personally apologized for his earlier dismissal of her work, though Maya suspected his change of heart had more to do with the billion-dollar patent applications than genuine recognition of her abilities.
Dr.
Zira will now explain the theoretical framework that makes this technology possible, Maya announced, stepping aside. Zira approached the podium with the confidence of someone who had spent months proving herself in the most demanding scientific forums in the world. Her bronze scales now gleamed with perfect health, and her posture radiated the authority that came from being acknowledged as one of the foremost experts in fusion physics. Honored delegates, Zira began, her voice carrying the musical undertones that marked her draconic heritage. The key to stable fusion lies in understanding that atomic nuclei are not merely particles to be forced together, but entities that respond to harmonic resonance patterns that exist throughout the universe.
She gestured to complex mathematical equations appearing on the screen. Dragons have long understood that energy follows natural frequencies, much like music follows mathematical relationships.
By applying these principles to fusion containment, we achieve not just stability, but self-sustaining reactions that require minimal external power input. The questions from the delegates were intense and technical, covering everything from safety protocols to manufacturing scalability.
Zira answered each one with precise scientific detail, occasionally consulting with Maya when engineering specifics were required.
Dr. Elena Vasquez from the International Atomic Energy Agency raised her hand. Dr. Zira, there are concerns about proliferation risks.
How do we ensure this technology isn't weaponized?
An excellent question, Zira replied.
The harmonic principles that make our fusion reactors stable actually prevent weaponization.
The resonance frequencies required for sustained reaction are incompatible with the rapid energy release needed for weapons.
Any attempt to modify our reactors for destructive purposes would simply cause them to shut down safely. What about the Dragon Council's position on this technology sharing? Asked the representative from China.
We understand there has been some political complexity within your species regarding your collaboration with humans.
Maya saw Zira's expression tighten slightly, but her voice remained steady.
The Dragon Council initially opposed my work with humans, viewing it as betrayal of draconic isolation principles. However, when they witnessed the positive global impact of our fusion technology, their position evolved. Elder Koroth himself recently acknowledged that perhaps dragons have been too isolated from the broader world.
What Zira didn't mention was the dramatic confrontation that had occurred 3 months earlier, when Elder Koroth and 2 other council members had arrived at Maya's laboratory unannounced. Maya remembered the tension in that meeting, the way the ancient dragons had towered over them both while questioning Zira's contamination by human values.
"You were cast out for your weaknesses," Elder Koroth had rumbled, his golden scales gleaming with authority.
"Now you return with human companions and strange technologies.
Explain yourself, smallest daughter." Maya had started to step forward in defense of her friend, but Zira had gently motioned her to remain calm.
"Honored Elder," Zira had replied, "I was cast out for being different.
That difference led me to discoveries that now benefit both our species and humanity. Perhaps what you called weakness was simply potential waiting for the right environment to flourish."
The demonstration that followed had been extraordinary.
Zira had not only explained the fusion technology but had also shown the council members how human and dragon perspectives on energy manipulation could be combined to achieve things neither species could accomplish alone. Elder Koroth had studied the fusion reactor for a long time before speaking again. "This changes much, small daughter.
Perhaps the council has been too hasty in its judgments."
Now, addressing the UN Assembly, Zira concluded her presentation with words that had become her signature statement: "Science knows no species boundaries. Intelligence is valuable wherever it emerges. The future belongs to those willing to learn from any source of wisdom." The vote that followed was overwhelming, 187 nations in favor of the Global Clean Energy Initiative, with Chanzira fusion technology as its cornerstone. Funding was approved for manufacturing facilities on every continent, with training programs to be established in partnership with universities worldwide. After the session, Maya and Zira found themselves on the terrace overlooking Lake Geneva, finally, able to speak privately.
"Can you believe this?" Maya asked, looking out over the water.
"A year ago, you were dying in a warehouse, and I was fighting to get anyone to listen to my fusion theories. A year ago, I believed I was worthless," Zira replied softly. "Now I'm Dr. Zira, co-inventor of revolutionary clean energy technology, and recipient of the Nobel Prize in Physics." They had shared that prize, the first time in Nobel history that a non-human intelligence had been recognized. The ceremony in Stockholm had been another media sensation, but Maya remembered it most for the moment when Zira had dedicated her acceptance speech to every small voice that has been silenced, and every different mind that has been dismissed.
"What happens next?" Maya asked.
Zira smiled, an expression that had become much more frequent over the past months.
"We keep working. There are other problems to solve, other technologies waiting to be discovered through human-dragon collaboration. The council offered you a place of honor, didn't they? A chance to return to Dragon Society as an acknowledged expert."
"They did," Zira confirmed. Elder Koroth himself extended the invitation.
Maya felt a familiar tightness in her chest.
Despite all their success, she still worried that Zira might one day decide she belonged with her own kind rather than in the human world.
"And?" Maya asked quietly.
Zira turned to face her friend fully.
"Maya, do you remember what you said the night you found me?
About how home isn't about who shares your DNA, but about who sees your worth?"
Maya nodded, remembering that conversation during their early days working together.
"The Dragon Council now sees my worth because I've proven myself according to their standards. But you saw my worth when I was broken and alone, when I had nothing to offer but theories and hope." Zira's voice grew stronger.
"Home isn't where your species lives, Maya.
Home is where someone sees who you really are and chooses to keep you anyway." Maya felt tears prick her eyes.
"So you're staying?"
"I'm staying," Zira confirmed.
"We have work to do. Clean water technology for developing nations. Medical applications for harmonic energy manipulation.
Space propulsion systems that could take humanity to other stars."
Maya laughed, wiping her eyes.
"You know, when I picked up that abandoned dragon in a warehouse, I thought I was just doing a good deed.
When that abandoned dragon met a stubborn human engineer, she thought she was just accepting help," Zira replied with amusement.
"Neither of us realized we were starting a revolution." As they stood together overlooking Lake Geneva, both of them understood that their partnership had become something larger than either had imagined. They had not only solved the technical challenges of clean fusion power, but had also proven that intelligence and innovation could emerge from the most unexpected collaborations. Maya's phone buzzed with another interview request, the 15th that day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new technologies to develop, and new barriers to break down. But tonight, they could simply appreciate how far they had traveled from that rainy night in an abandoned warehouse. Zira, Maya said as they headed back inside, "Thank you for trusting me enough to stay." "Maya," Zira replied, "thank you for seeing that I was worth keeping." Behind them, the sun set over Lake Geneva, painting the sky in shades of bronze and gold that reminded Maya of the first time she had seen Zira's scales gleam with health and confidence. Tomorrow, they would continue changing the world. Tonight, they were simply home. In laboratories around the globe, young scientists of every species were beginning to understand that the most powerful discoveries came not from conforming to expectations, but from having the courage to be exactly who they were meant to be. And, in a small apartment workshop that had become the birthplace of a technological revolution, two friends continued proving that some whispers, when heard by the right listener, could become the songs that changed everything.